Hey everybody, welcome to Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews. This week we've been looking at Planet Apocalypse from Petersen Games. It's a cooperative 1 to 5 player tower defense game where the players work cooperatively to stop the hordes from hell from invading our planet and laying waste and devastation to everything around them. Now this video itself, I'm just going to give you my actual opinion of the game. If you want to see a quick overview, learn how to play the game, or see some sample gameplay, check out the other videos in the series. In this specific video, I'm just going to give you my opinion of the game itself. Now, tower defense games is a genre that we don't have a lot of games for, at least not at this point in the board gaming hobby. It's been pretty much inspired by the app-driven market, where we have a lot of these tower defense games in the app market, but as the board game hobby, we don't have a lot of games that match this genre. You can look at games such as Trading the Mediterranean, or deck building games, or other mechanics like that, and you have a lot of games that match the mechanics. But tower defense is a relatively new thing. So this is a tower defense game, and basically the idea of the game is you're going to have these marching hordes and we continuously to march down a track. And our players are playing heroes who are working cooperatively in an effort to destroy these bad guys, remove them from the planet, and win the game by eventually defeating the Grand Baddie. Now the Grand Baddie is going to slowly ramp things up as the gameplay goes, and the game creates a certain kind of pressure, and you need to make decisions on when do you want to go after the Grand Baddie, when do you want to start building up your heroes, when do you want to start whittling down the board, and when do you want to lay ambushes, when do you want to lay traps, and how you want to build up your heroes themselves. And these are all things that go together to create a lot of decisions that build the decision space for this game. Now, as for tower defense games, since it's a fairly new genre, there aren't a lot of games that actually do this kind of mechanic. So the kind of cool thing is it feels like a really new mechanic right now, because every one of these games does it just a little bit differently, and they don't feel like they're starting to butt heads with each other. It's not like the deck building genre where you're playing games where they go, yep, played this before, I've done this mechanic before. So it still feels like a relatively new thing, which is really, really nice. And what Petersen Games has done here is they've used their traditional Petersen Games magic. Every time Petersen Games, or Sandy Petersen, builds a game, he does a really fantastic job of building games that are mechanically fairly simple. You look at the game Cthulhu Wars. Cthulhu Wars is actually a fairly simple game. The richness and the depth of the game of Cthulhu Wars comes in the interaction of the players, the interaction of the powers, the fact that there's like 11 factions for the game now, and how they all interact with the players, with the worlds, with the different maps and everything like that. So you see how he builds games like that. You look at the Gods War, it's the very same thing. The game mechanics are not that hard to teach. There's a very small set of rules of actions that you can do on your turn, but it's the interaction of the powers and the abilities and the interaction with the other players that creates the game. And that's basically what Sandy Petersen has done here, again with this game, Planet Apocalypse. The turn structure is very, very simple. There's going to be a team phase where the players get to do their actions in any order, which is fantastic. I love games that allow you to have variety in your phases, where your decisions can matter, and where you can twist up the turn phase and help you make better decisions. It feels less restrictive, and it makes the game feel much more enjoyable, at least for me. And it also goes for the player phase. There are some games out there where you move and then you do your action. That's pretty much all you can do. Well, in this game, you have 3 different actions on your player phase, and you can mix up and match how you're going to do those different actions. Add in the fact that all of our different heroes have different powers and different abilities. And one thing that is really unique and very cool about this game, all of our heroes have their own unique weaknesses. So this game creates a really interesting thing that takes these very simple mechanics of move and attack, or attack and move, or place an ambush, and elevates it by the amount of interaction and the replay variety that comes to the game, just with the variety of the heroes, the variety of the gifts that come into the game, the variety that's going to be created when you create the ambushes, and the variety that's going to happen because this game has a lot of expansions. Every one of the expansions for this game creates some additional difficulties, additional challenges, and they all continually slowly ramp up the difficulty and the challenges and the gameplay itself. Now, this very basic, simple map that you see right here that comes with the base game, there's 2 maps that come with the base game. This very first one is actually pretty darn simple. Basically, what's going to happen is the monster is just going to march down one space at a time, continuing to march down, and their basic objective is they get off the map. If enough of them get off the map, the doom is going to go up and the players are going to lose. Well, on the opposite side of this map is you can flip one of these map halves over and you create a donut. And the interesting thing about the donut side of the map is it is much more challenging, because the monsters in the normal map that you see right here, when they leave the map, they're going to raise the doom token counter and they're just going to go back in the pool. Well, on the opposite side of this, not the invasion side, but the Doomgate side of this, every time one of the monsters goes across the other side, they're going to come back at the start again, making it very hard on the players. So the player difficulty is going to start ramping up just a little bit more because the monsters aren't going to disappear by going off the invasion map. You can't make that decision saying, okay guys, we can afford to lose 2 of these Keiko Daemons. Let's not bother attacking them because they do a lot of damage. You can't do those decisions on the Doomgate because they're going to come back on the other side and they're going to keep advancing again and they're going to keep on doing that. So you're forced to take out these bad guys. So you have an additional increased difficulty. You have the increased difficulty of if the bad guy ever gets to the start, our heroes instantly lose. But on the Doomgate side, everything keeps cycling. So it's going to keep cycling more and more and more. And as you saw in the gameplay, if you ever get to the point where you can't spawn minions, the Doom track is going to keep moving up. And that adds another really cool thing that has a lot of replay to the game, and that's going to be the legions. Now these legions, now in the base box there's only 4 legions, but in every expansion there's additional legions that come with the game. And all of these legions add extra powers, extra difficulties, and extra challenges to the game and make the game just a little bit more challenging, adding more variety to the game. Now the game itself is actually a very tactical game. This isn't a strategy game, this is 100% a tactical game. Because you have an economy of actions, you have a game state that is constantly changing, it's constantly morphing based on the roll of the dice, based on the way the gifts are going to come out, the way the Doom track is advancing, the way the monsters are advancing, and the way that you're having to use your ambushes to protect your heroes, or whether you're taking your units out on patrol. And you have a very limited amount of items to use at your disposal. For example, the patrol cards come with a very limited set, and these are decisions you need to make as you're playing the game. Tactically, you need to make a decision if it's worth putting out there to put out an ambush at a location, knowing that if you put out that ambush, those are less cards that you'll be able to take out on patrol because there's a limited amount of every single one of these cards. For example, you see there's only 4 Special Forces cards. So if you were to put out 4 Special Forces cards as an ambush at a location, that means nobody can take them out on patrol. So these are the decisions you need to be making when you play this game. So this game does have a little bit of luck to it, but it is really much a very tactical game. You do have the luck of the dice and the randomness of how the gifts are going to come out, but you got to understand that it's also a very tactical game because the decisions you're making do matter. Because you have a very limited economy of actions. You basically have 1 move that allows you to move up to 2 spaces, and then you have 1 attack action. Now some of our heroes have special abilities, such as Naomi has her nimble ability, but basically you have a very strong economy of actions. So it is a game where you have to be monitoring what you're doing constantly based on a little bit of the randomness of the luck of the dice, and understanding that, you know, the game, the way it works, some of the dice are going to kind of balance out a little bit also in the long run. The way dice are designed is the more dice you have, especially when you start rolling 12 dice, you can pretty much assume what's going to happen. You can start estimating what's going to happen, and you can start estimating how your Doom track is going to start advancing. So this game, while it is a little bit luck-based, the tactics do make a difference in the way you're going to play the game, and your tactical decisions can kind of counteract the amount of luck that's based in the game. Sure, you have the luck of the dice that rolls with your attack. Sure, you have the luck of the dice when it comes to the ambushes, or not the ambushes, but the invasions. But your tactical decisions are going to make a difference and allow you to have a more stronger gameplay with good tactical decisions going to make you come out on top versus very bad tactical decisions. And those tactical decisions start right at the start of the game based on the heroes you pick when you start to play the game. Now all these heroes have very specific, very special powers. They have their own branching skill trees. They have their own 2 special skills, and every one of these heroes has weaknesses. So it's tactically very smart for you to pick heroes that work very well together. Or if you want to increase the difficulty, you can pick some heroes that don't work too well together, and you're going to see that the game becomes a little bit more challenging, and you're going to have to make some different decisions on how you're playing the game. The game also has a very set built-in ramping of the difficulty. The game slowly ramps up with this difficulty as you're playing the game, which forces you to not rest on your laurels. You're actually forced to go out there and go after the bad guy. Some of these lords are very much designed for the fact that the longer you wait to go after them, the harder it is going to be to take them out. Because the game has a very steady progression of the difficulty. As you wait longer, the hordes are going to get larger, you have greater risk of the Doom track going up, and the Lord is going to start advancing on you, removing the amount of spaces that you have to interact with the board. As the Lord starts moving up and their shadow starts expanding, what is going to happen is you're going to start losing places where you can create ambushes. And as you run out of places for ambushes, you're going to run out of backup areas that help you start taking out these bad guys. You're going to run out of backup ways to start gaining courage, which means you're going to start running out of backup ways of trying to win the game. So there's a very strong time pressure with this game, and it creates this very great environment when you're playing the game that's actually pretty darn enjoyable, the way it all works together. Between your limited resources of your ambushes and your patrols, the limited resources with the spaces you have, the limited resources of the gifts you have, the limited resources of the courage, and the strong desire that you gotta stop resting on your laurels and you gotta go after the bad guys before too many of them come on the board, and you just get absolutely overwhelmed and there's nothing you can do about it because you made some poor tactical decisions earlier in the game. Now the game Planet Apocalypse comes with some really, really nice components. There's some very thick cardboard with the map boards. There's a lot of dice in the game. Hello, Fantasy Flight. Why don't you start taking notes from Petersen games? You can't play a game with only 5 dice. The game comes with a lot of dice, more than enough dice that you will probably ever need. And if you need more dice, yes, the rules do allow you to have more dice if it ever comes down to it. But most likely you're not going to need it. And these are actually really good dice. They're not small dice. They're standard sized dice and they roll very well. And they're very hefty, very nice dice. Obviously the miniatures are all extremely nice. This game will look fantastic once it's all painted up because these miniatures all have really good detail on them. I mean, you can look at these miniatures and see the wonderful amount of detail on every one of these bad guys. Yes, they look monstrous. Yes, they look strange. Yes, they look odd when you look at their backsides, but they have a very strong theme to them, and they did a very good job with the amount of artwork they put into the game when it comes to the manufacturing of the miniatures. The boards look very good. There's lots of decent color on the boards that makes them look a good variety. The hero sheets look really good. There's some really good design elements in this game, and I can tell that they definitely hired a very good professional to make the design elements. And if I'm not mistaken, it's Universal Head who actually helped design this game, and he deserves some wonderful kudos. Or I shouldn't say design the game, he did some of the graphic design for the game, and it really shows. The game looks really fantastic on the table. The components look wonderful. You have some nice, good, chunky dice. You have some good card stock. You have some good maps. Everything about this game looks really good. It has a very strong, good table presence, and there's plenty of components in the game. You have plenty of cardboard tokens for your dice. You have plenty of tokens for everything that goes around. They did a very good job of making sure that you have more than enough in this game to enjoy the game and have a wonderful table presence. They even did a really good job with the rulebook of this game. The rulebook that comes with the game is designed very well, and it actually covers all the expansions that come out for the game. It has an FAQ at the end. It goes over everything. It goes over character stories. It goes over everything you could ever need to know. It gives you strategies about the bosses and challenges and everything about that. They did a really fantastic job with the rulebook. So everything component-wise for this game is done very, very well. And it's at a really good price point. For what you get in the box, there is a really good value for your dollar here. But having said that, this is one of those games where you're going to want to get an expansion pretty darn quick. And the main reason why is because the base box comes with one bad guy and one bad guy only, and one double-sided map. And of course you have 2 of the 4 circle bad guys, but you're going to play this game probably about 3 or 4, maybe about 5 times, depending if you're going to be playing solo or if you're going to be playing with friends. If you're playing with 4 friends and you're having 5 players, you're probably going to get less plays out of the base box. But if you're playing the game as a solo experience, just playing with 2 heroes at a time, you're going to see there's a lot more variety for you. Then you're going to get much more replay out of it. But either way, you're going to want to get an expansion for this game because buying an expansion adds an exponential amount of replay to the game. One expansion adds 2 more lords, which means you're going to have 3 lords to pick from. One expansion has 3 more Circle 4 demons, which means buying one expansion is going to give you 5 of those guys to go for. It's going to give you 2 more heroes. It's going to give you 10 more gifts. It's going to give you 1 more double-sided map, and these maps are going to get progressively harder. Every single expansion slowly ramps up the difficulty of the game, and not only that, they're going to give you extra different patrols that you can take with you. Now, every time you play the game, you only get 5 patrols. And when you bring in the expansions, it also adds in something that's not in the base game, and that's regions. Now, basically what regions do is they add a little bit of extra theme to the game, and they're going to add a little bit of extra rules because you're basically saying, hey, we're fighting in the region of Europe, we're fighting in the region of Italy, we're fighting in the region of Asia, or something like that. I don't have all of them, so I don't know what they all look like. But basically, they're going to give you some extra different patrols you can have with you, and some extra different rules to add again to the variety. So just buying one expansion for this game adds an exponential amount of replay variety, and that's one warning I do have to give about the game. The game has a wonderful value for what comes in the base box, but the replay value is just going to get so much more with an expansion, to the point I would definitely say that look forward to getting an expansion with this game. If you buy the base game, you're going to want to buy an expansion because they just add so much extra variety. If you're playing this game with a group of friends, you're probably going to want to get that expansion very, very quickly. If you're playing this game as a solo experience, just playing with 2 heroes, you're probably going to get a good half dozen plays in before you can start pondering looking at some of those extra expansions. So this game does have a good amount of replay in it. And when you get the expansions, you're going to get a lot more replay variety for it. So replay-wise, it's got a good amount there, but definitely get that expansion, get that extra replay out there. Now, when I talk about games, I always like to mention about the player count and where games play with player count. Obviously, we know some games play better at a higher player count. Some games play better at a lower player count, and this is one of those interesting games that kind of has a little bit of a quandary going on. I actually don't think there's a perfect player count for this game because different player counts have a very different feel to them. When you're playing the game solo, just using 2 heroes, your heroes level up very, very quickly, but you see that the encounters with the lords are very, very challenging. Whereas opposed when you play with more players, it's the exact opposite. It's hard to level up your heroes, but the fights versus the lord are not quite as challenging. Well, they're still challenging, but they're challenging in a different way because your heroes are a little bit weaker, but you have more heroes to soak up the damage. As you see, when I played, I only was able to go 1 round against this boss right here before I had to retreat with all 3 of my guys. Whereas if I was playing a 5-player game, I would have 2 more players who can soak up some damage, which means I could have stayed in that fight for maybe 2 or maybe even 3 more rounds. So this game has a different feel to it based on the amount of players, which goes to say that I really don't think there's a perfect player count for this game, which is definitely a positive for me, which means this game plays great at all player counts from 1 all the way up to 5. The bottom line here is, do I like this game? Yes, I enjoyed playing Apocalyptic quite a bit. There's just a couple caveats that you need to understand about the game. Yes, there's a little bit of randomness with luck. Yes, this is very much a tactical game versus a strategic game. And yes, you're definitely going to want to get an expansion and get as much replay value out of this game as you possibly can. It's going to add a lot more to replay value. But even having said that, the base box is a very well designed game with lots of decision trees, lots of challenges, and lots of good tactics to create this wonderful, good experience that plays great solo, plays great all the way up to 5 players, creating this wonderful game that has this wonderful table presence, lots of depth of variety, very super simple, easy to teach, very super simple, easy to play, but has lots of good decisions, good strategies, lots of variety with the different heroes, the way the different game is going to play every single time you play with the different maps, the different lores, the different bad guys, and how everything's going to come out, creating this wonderful, different experience where you're going to have to change up your strategies based on the maps you're playing, based on the bad guys you're playing, based on the heroes you're playing, based on the legions that happen to be coming out, based on the way the gifts are coming out. So just basically, so many things go together to create a lot of replay, a lot of variety, a lot of challenges to create a very good tactical game that does have a little bit of luck to it, but is still extremely enjoyable, and you can definitely outperform the luck with very good tactics. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to answer them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at offtheshelfboardgamereviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll be sure to answer emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching.